As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Good evening and welcome to SNC Tonight. I'm Jenna Ellis, and Donald Trump has been ordered as of last week in the state of New York to pay a $355 million fine out of a civil fraud case and has been banned from doing business in New York. Attorney General Letitia James campaigned on getting Trump. This is what she had to say in one of her ads.
America is an uncharted territory. We are angrier and more deeply divided than we've ever been at any point in our history since the Civil War. And at the eye of the storm is Donald Trump, ripping families apart, threatening women's most basic rights. I'm running for Attorney General because I will never be afraid to challenge this illegitimate president when our fundamental rights are at stake. From the Muslim ban, to efforts to deport immigrants, to denying transgender students the ability to choose whatever bathroom they want, rolling back regulations to protect our planet, colluding with foreign powers, putting profits over people, and dividing us in ways we haven't seen in generations.
So I wasn't aware that any state attorney general could dictate policy or could pursue a civil action against a former sitting president just because she doesn't like what he did in office. But that's clearly what Letitia James did. So Alina Habba, who is Trump's counsel, said this on Twitter. This verdict is a manifest injustice, plain and simple. It is the culmination of a multi-year politically fueled witch hunt that was designed to, quote, take down Donald Trump before Letitia James ever stepped foot into the Attorney General's office. Countless hours of testimony proved that there was no wrongdoing, no crime, and no victim. Given the grave stakes, we trust that the appellate division will overturn this egregious verdict and end this relentless persecution against my clients. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. This is not just about Donald Trump. If this decision stands, it will serve as a signal to every single American that New York is no longer open for business. Well, I agree at least with this, that this isn't just about Donald Trump, but of course, he does make it a lot about himself. And so part of the response to this $355 million verdict has been yet another call for not only donations and campaign finance funds, but also the sales that, hey, the New York businessman is really he is prolific in doing. So he has now launched a line of sneakers, which you may think is kind of interesting for Donald Trump. This is what one conservative pundit had to say from our good friend John Cardillo. Trump is putting a T on an $18 Chinese-made sneakers and then selling them to his followers for $400 a pair. Does it get any more cringe? So joining me now to break all of this down and more is Matt Tyrmand, who is a Claremont Institute Lincoln Fellow. So Matt, I think that two things are going on here. First, we can say that the civil trial is manifest injustice. This should be about the rule of law, not just about getting Trump. But then on the flip side, who has $400 to pay for a pair of gold sneakers that are just pre-sale with no real manufacturer or delivery date?
Made in China. I mean, look, I look at this court case as two things can be true at the same time, that this selective prosecution, this penalties levied are ridiculous. But if you read the charges in the indictment against him and the business as a whole, there was some shadiness in the valuations of his properties that suggest there is some level of locus and realistic reasoning for being in court. Look, if you run for president, you probably shouldn't be doing things that can get you dragged into court, 3, 4, 5, 8 years later. And obviously, Donald Trump did not get that memo. And now to fund all of these shenanigans or the defense thereof, he's selling sneakers. He's already run out of swatches of his suit that he's cut up and sold for X amount, the suit that he was wearing during the mugshot. NFTs, there's been multiple rounds of that. At the same site that you can buy the sneakers, you can buy Trump cologne and Trump perfume. The merchandising of the presidency and the run for presidency is, as John Cardillo said, quite cringe. But, a capitalist marketing maven from New York, this is how he built his entire national profile. He's not deviating from what got him into the American visible sphere in the first place. I do think it's a little unseemly, though.
Well, so Matt, I mean, clearly there is still a market for this, and while the MAGA ardent base is probably thinning out, and some people are really getting tired of a lot of this. I mean, this sold out supposedly, at least according to the website, within an hour. The NFTs have sold out. I mean, everything that he has tried to market and merchandise has gone over well. So, with the capitalist mentality, I mean, is this necessarily a bad thing, or is this just kind of a smart way to give people something in exchange for donations to his campaign?
Well, they are limited edition, don't you know? So, I mean, it's not that, of course, they will come out with many, like book publishing, first print run, a second print run. This is what they've done with the NFTs, which you can print them up out of nothing. Look, this reminds me of an old saying about Wall Street, a place where I spent a decently long career before coming into public policy and journalism, and still have some activity. And Wall Street takes your money and their experience and makes it their money and your experience. And the level of marketing here, of selling things that right now, like everything that is a fad, he's very, very popular with a certain cohort. We don't know what those numbers look like. That's what this election is going to tell us is, how popular is he with Americans writ large? I think probably it's waning a little bit and a lot of people are exhausted. But there will always be demand from some people for something. In the 70s, they sold out of pet rocks. They literally took rocks, put them in plastic shrink wrap, and sold them in toy stores, and they called them pet rocks. Fads are fads, especially when you're dealing with a cult of personality, a political cult of personality, as we have today in the American right, with Trump, and not just Trump, but other characters that, you and I talk about. This is not the history books will not look at this as the most rational moment in American political and American consumer history. No doubt about it in my mind.
Yeah, I remember the Beanie Baby craze of the early 90s. And, that, of course, went away. And people who were buying these and then selling them, that was the rise of eBay. Then suddenly, we're kind of left with a lot of merchandise that then had no value. So do you think that there is going to be a crash eventually in the demand for Trump products?
Oh, 100%. No, look, I mean, these products, if they're, sneakerheads are, a cult in and of themselves. And if they preserve the conditioning of them, then maybe there'll be a secondary market, but it will not go like we're seeing already secondary market forward sales, right? They haven't even been delivered. You purchase one for future allocation, and now you're selling the right to that as a future or an option on eBay. And we're seeing prices like $5,000. That is a bubble. That is a fad. That being said, the signed ones might retain some value as, some sort of signature collectible item, just like you have with baseballs and other things or celebrity photographs. But I don't.
Yeah, well, we got to leave it there, Matt Tyrmand. But really appreciate your commentary. And hey, I thought that the economy was doing poorly, but $5,000 for a resale of eBay sneakers. Wow. Well, Trump is really making out great. We'll be right back with more here on S&C Tonight. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America Coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. Breaking earlier today, presidential Republican candidate Nikki Haley announced that she is not dropping out of the race ahead of the South Carolina primary in her home state, which is set for February 24th. This is what she had to say.
Some of you, perhaps a few of you in the media, came here today to see if I'm dropping out of the race. Well, I'm not.
Well, I was one in the media that was really hoping she would drop out of the race because I think she's a Republican establishment hack and has no business being in the Oval Office. But hey, that's just me. So joining me now to discuss all of this and more with the presidential primaries is our good friend Robin Biro, who is a Democratic strategist and former Obama staffer. So Robin, I think that people on both sides are just frustrated with everything going on in 2024. And what is your take, at least? First, let's start on the Republican side with Nikki Haley not dropping out, I think surprisingly, ahead of her home state of South Carolina, because I think she's going to lose this one.
Oh, Jenna, she's down by about 30 points or more in my home state of South Carolina. That's where I was raised, and I moved away when I joined the Army. But you know, I still consider it home. Nikki Haley was my governor for a long time. So I've been really keenly attuned to this race. But let me say, you know as well as I do that as long as there's money in the campaign account, she's not going anywhere. And with the fourth quarter filings, she had $24 million in the bank account. So frankly, her campaign won't die unless the money is spent up. But we are so tired, so exasperated from this primary season.
Yeah, and it just seems like a real waste of funds. And I know that the Trump camp was saying that about Ron DeSantis in the primary. And, you know, I think that he gave it a great shot in Iowa, did all of the ground game. And then as soon as he saw that there wasn't a pathway, he suspended his campaign. That's what you should do, not necessarily waste any further money. But of course, he gave it a really good shot. So Nikki Haley staying in just to kind of waste a lot of the donors' money. Is there maybe a deeper strategy going on here that she's going to cling to second place and hope that somehow Donald Trump is disqualified or has to drop out before the Republican convention?
I think that's exactly what she's hedging her bets on, Jenna. I've said that all along, that she's waiting to see what happens with the Supreme Court. I think that's such a long shot, though. I give that maybe about a 10% chance that he will be disqualified from running. I would be shocked, frankly, if he was disqualified from running. But I think she's hedging her bets on that. I think also she's kind of positioning herself for her political future. Maybe in 4 years, maybe even 8 years. She's pretty young, so she's got a bright future ahead of her politically, and she's very savvy. But look, I want to tell you, I reached out to one of her campaign staffers because, look, I was a campaign staffer. We're a tight little circle, even Republicans and Democrats. We all kind of keep up. And I reached out to her to say, what's up? What's going on? And she said, look, the Beast of the Southeast tour that they're calling it is doing great. She's packing out rallies. They talked some about Donald Trump denigrating, I guess, her husband, who's a deployed service member right now. And they still feel that they're confident because of what they're seeing at the rallies. I'm not seeing that with the polls and the numbers that we've seen so far, though, Jenna.
Yeah, I haven't met a Nikki Haley voter, so I'm not really sure who is actually attending these rallies. Probably a bunch of never Trumpers, frankly, that think that they just want anyone as an alternative to Donald Trump. But this is setting up, I think, really, at least right now, Trump versus Biden yet again. And as you mentioned, I mean, a lot of people think that Republicans and Democrats just all hate each other. But, you know, in Washington, we're going to break the fourth wall tonight and just tell you, you know, no, that's how I met Robin, is because we were in the Fox News green room all the time together. He's actually a great guy. We've become really good friends, and I actually appreciate his analysis. Republicans and Democrats actually talk more to each other than most people think. And so I don't think either of us, Robin, really want to see a Trump versus Biden repeat. Most of the country does not. So is this, and I agree with you that Donald Trump should not be kicked off the ballot. He has every right to run constitutionally. But does that set up a potential for the Democrats to replace Joe Biden and then have really a leg up on the 2024 race with literally any other Democrat that they could install?
Make no mistake. And look, you know, he's 81 years old? And I mean, he's in good health for being 81 years old. I hope I'm in that good of health when I'm 81. And look, Donald Trump, too. I think
except
he's
his mental
77.
capacity, but yeah.
Yeah. And Donald Trump, too, though. I think he's 77. I mean, I just hope, Jenna, when I'm their ages, that I'm sitting on a front porch, rocking chair, not having to deal with any of this. So I don't know how either one of these gentlemen are doing it, frankly, not to be ageist, but I guess that is ageist, but my gosh, I just would not I was hoping for a better option. I was hoping for somebody younger, some fresh new blood in there, frankly, with some newer ideas. I really don't like the idea of either one of these being our candidates that we have to choose from again. I was hoping to God that Joe Biden would be primaried and the Democratic Party would allow an open, robust primary. Because look, competition is one of the things that makes Americans great. Joe Biden, frankly, needs to be out on the camera, proving his mental capacity, proving that he's fit for the job still. And the way to do that would have been to go in front of people like RFK, Marianne Williamson, some of these others, and debate them. But they've coronated him, and I just can't stand it.
Yeah, I really can't either. And I didn't like the fact that Donald Trump refused to debate his primary opponents in the same way that I don't like that Joe Biden refused to debate his. So, in just the last about minute 30 we have with you, Robin, the RFK factor I think is really fascinating to both the Democrat and the Republican side. As we move forward, if this becomes Trump versus Biden yet again, where will RFK pull more from, Republicans or Democrat voters?
Both, but it'll be along male voters who are between the ages of 18 and about 44, 45 years old. He's very popular with males specifically among that demographic. And that's just the way it is. He's hitting all of the podcasts that he needs to hit. I think it's going to affect pretty much Republicans and Democrats equally, Jenna.
It's really fascinating, and I think that this is the first presidential election that, I mean, maybe since 1992 and Ross Perot, that an independent really has an opportunity to draw from both sides and actually be a contender. I hope that RFK Jr. will continue to rise. There's a lot of things I think that Republicans and Democrats like about him: his attention to medical freedom and healthcare regarding the COVID vaccine. A lot of other things that he just seems to be a rational person that does appeal. Maybe we don't agree on policy on everything on both
Right.
sides, but I think a lot of people are really tired and frustrated with both Trump and Biden. We have a lot of that fatigue. So maybe we're going to see sort of a resurgence of independence. But Robin, Biro, always really appreciate your commentary. And I'm glad that we're friends, even though we disagree on policy. That's how it should be in America. We'll be right back with more here on S&C Tonight. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. As the nation's attention is still squarely focused on the southern border, and I'm not talking about the border between Ukraine and Russia, but actually America's border, it's the number one issue for voters in the United States. Where is congressional attention? A lot of the Republicans are trying to pass a border security package that the Democrats are squarely rejecting. But the Texas standoff between the state and the federal government is setting up a very interesting constitutional clash. States still do have sovereignty and constitutionally can protect their own borders, regardless of what the federal government does, whether it aids or even if it forbids them. So joining me to discuss the constitutional analysis of why Greg Abbott and the red state governors are correct to defend our southern border is our good friend Don Huffines, who was a former gubernatorial candidate for the state of Texas and also the president and founder of the Huffines Liberty Foundation. So, Don, this is an issue that you know very, very well, and you ran in your campaign on an Article 1, Section 10 analysis of the U.S. Constitution and why governors and states can protect their borders regardless of what the federal government does.
Well, that is correct, Jenna. I've been talking about this for a couple of years now, real longer than that. I mean, Article 1, Section 10, as you just mentioned, clearly gives the states the authority to do whatever they need to do, basically, if they're being invaded and the federal government doesn't come to their aid. I mean, Article 1 talks a lot about the different roles of the federal government and the state governments. And our founders wouldn't have put that in the Constitution and if they didn't have a good reason to do it. And I really believe that hardly any of the states would have signed that without that provision being in there. Because you got to just imagine, let's say France invaded Virginia and the federal government didn't come to their aid. Of course, the folks in Virginia need help, and they've got the right, the state does, to raise an army, to solicit support from other states, militias or armies, which is the National Guards or the state's militias now. And they've got a right to charge a tariff, to negotiate a treaty with a foreign nation, and basically do what they need to do. And look, an invasion, of course, isn't necessarily a military force. And we've had 2 million illegals pour across our southern border in 1 year. 2 million. I mean, if that's not an invasion, I don't know what is. But just think of it this way: what's the end game? What if it was 5 million or 10 million? And why is the Biden administration allowing this to go on? What is it they're trying to accomplish? And it isn't a humanitarian process. They're not doing this because these folks are being picked on by gangs in Honduras or something, or because they need a job. They're doing it to change the demographics of the United States of America. They're doing it for political reasons, 100%. They're trying to take over Texas, where the last Republican border state left. And they know when they win Texas, and they will if they keep flooding us with millions of illegals, they control the presidency of the United States really forever, and that means they control the free world.
Yeah, that really is the end game. And Speaker Mike Johnson, when he was just then Congressman Mike Johnson, said this very plainly in one of the House committees, that he said, this is all about turning illegals into voters. And that explains why the Biden administration is so derelict in their duties. And so Congress has now, at least the House, has impeached Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and that may or may not actually go to trial in the Senate. Do you think that this is an effective, potentially, move by the House, or should they have just gone for Joe Biden? Because even if the Senate does convict and remove Mayorkas, Biden is just going to install someone else who will be derelict at the border as well.
Well, I agree with you, Jenna. It's not going to be very effective. Even if we got it out of the Senate, we being the Republicans, and got him convicted and removed from office, just like you're saying. The president can put anybody he wants in the position, and they might even be worse. So don't think we're going to get anyone better. Look, the federal government has never secured the border, and they never will. This is a clear, premeditated attack on Texas and the United States of America. Our culture, demographics are 100% political. They know that. And they're very good, very patient. And this has been going on for decades. And just the practical side of it, it's hugely painful for Texas taxpayers. I mean, we're getting hammered with the cost of illegal immigration, border security, and everything else that goes with it, educating illegals in our school system. We spend billions of dollars doing that, billions of dollars on reinforcements on the border and security. And I could just go on from healthcare to incarceration and everything else. So I think impeachment is a political stunt. Maybe it brings more attention to the issue. but it's certainly not going to be effective.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on that. And I think that the Republicans are rapidly losing time to continue and actually fulfill their impeachment inquiry against Joe Biden. So in the state of Texas, now that Ken Paxton, the attorney general, has survived his own impeachment, which was a total sham out of the state of Texas, is he doing anything to combat this attempt to turn illegals into voters in the state of Texas?
Well, not right now, not that I have knowledge of. And our governor is making some effort, Governor Abbott, to help down there on the border. But I do remind all your listeners that so far the governor of Texas has done nothing to invalidate any federal court order. So if the court says we can't put up razor wire, or that the Border Patrol, could cut the razor wire, our guys down there on the border, being the military, is letting them cut the wire, and then we put the wire back behind them. So the governor's team has not done anything to defy a federal court order, and I don't think they will. So it will probably lose some of these federal lawsuits, and there's one pending right now that we can deport illegals. It's a state law that we passed, and that one's the next hot topic right now. Is going to come up to SCOTUS, Supreme Court. Can the state actually charge the illegals with a crime and immediately deport them without necessarily using Article 1, Section 10? So you'll see that coming up. And I suspect, my prediction is Texas will lose that case again. So really, the only way to secure the border is with a courageous governor of a border state.
Yeah, and we need courageous governors to file those lawsuits, and hopefully the Supreme Court will do the right thing. Don Huffines, really appreciate your commentary, and this is why attention to the border and these cases are incredibly important for conservatives, not just from a policy standpoint, but from a rule of law and the U.S. Constitution, and ensuring that we have a nation of rules, not rulers. We'll be right back. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com, and use promo code Jenna, that's JENNA, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. So as we're rapidly approaching the November 2024 elections, how is tech and Republicans' participation, or maybe lack thereof, potentially going to shape voters' views, and especially with young people? Rob Salvador is a tech entrepreneur out of Florida, and he joins me now. Rob, let's start with AI and polling. There is so much that is, I think, really misinformation, where the polls are kind of a bandwagon fallacy that ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so your company has really, I think, successfully used AI in polling. So how is that potentially going to continue to shape not just the 2024 election, but even beyond?
Yeah, well, great to be back with you. And yeah, great question. I think, one of the things you're seeing is that these polls, the mainstream polls, are utilized in a way, like you said, it's more marketing than it is actually, adhering to the statistics of trying to generalize a group, a bigger group from a smaller group. So we've seen sometimes the polls are right, sometimes the polls are wrong, depending who you ask. Right now, Donald Trump is ahead in the polls, or if you ask the other person, Joe Biden's way ahead in the polls. So I think what we were able to do by introducing artificial intelligence, which is obviously a new and powerful technology, was show that there is an upgraded version of polls available we were one of the few that got the order correct, that showed Trump, then DeSantis, then Haley, then Vivek. Long-time mainstream pollsters, didn't get that correct in many cases. There was only a couple that did. So by utilizing new tech like AI and just generally software across the board, you can make better polling that might be more truthful, that might be less of that bandwagon fallacy, as you mentioned. And I think more broadly, the most important part of us releasing that poll was to really shine a light on the need for technology amongst conservatives and within the Republican Party, because the Democrats, they already have all this. They use artificial intelligence in many different ways, which we can get into. So while it was great, to utilize a new technology in our poll, we heard from many of the, big consultants out there wanting to look at the technology, which was promising. The bigger picture here is, as a party, we have to start leaning into and appreciating, not fearing this new tech, because it is here and that's not going to change.
Yeah, that's a really great point. And that gets into some of the more questionable areas of technology, even though artificial intelligence is more broadly, Elon Musk, of course, has prolifically spoken against that and making sure that we use it in the right ways, at least. But what about something like TikTok? Because Joe Biden and the Democrats, he uses TikTok pretty prolifically to reach young people who, unfortunately, they just are on that platform. And while Republicans are trying to get that banned in the United States, it is here right now. I don't think that Republicans should shy away from using that, just like, for example, states that have legalized ballot harvesting. If we're not using the tools at our disposal as Republicans, we're just basically yielding that ground to the Democrats, and we're giving up an advantage, I think, to them.
Yeah, here's the thing. Those platforms, the big tech platforms like Facebook and TikTok and X and whatnot, they are built by the biggest, baddest, most intelligent entrepreneurs in the world. And those systems are literally designed to bring users in to want to use it more. The algorithm of these social media platform actually engages with your brain and the things that make your brain tick and function, no pun intended with TikTok. So the point is, if we want to win elections, we have to go where the electorate, the next generation of electorate is at. And, that's right there on TikTok and on these platforms. So as much as I don't want to support it because, TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is, known to be CCP affiliated, that's where the voters are right now. And the Democrats have utilized that to do things like find new voters, engage in get out and vote campaigns and things that have been very successful for them. So until the market or the tech world in the United States can create our own platforms that incentivize enough users to go on them, we have to fight the battles where they are right now. And for Republicans, like, that battlefield really is the big tech platforms like TikTok. You have to give credit where it's due to people like Vivek. As much as, folks like myself and you and others hit him for using TikTok, he's in the right place because, as I said, these algorithms are impacting young people. And so unless you're going to ban them, which in my opinion, as much as I would love to say it, TikTok, China associated, are we going to start banning things from the federal level like a dictatorship? If the answer is no, and I hope the answer is no, then we have to go and we have to fight those battles where they're at. So again, one of the things I'm hopeful in what we're building, technology-wise and kind of being a technology voice amongst conservatives is to at least draw attention to the need for technology that includes social media usage and really getting to the voter, the young voter, where they are at right now. Because as much as we would want to resist it as Republicans, we can't. It's not going to change. These young voters, they do use technology. And on the other side, so do the Democrats. So we have to keep up.
Yeah, and a lot of these platforms like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook, I mean, this is where the young voters are at. They're not really on Truth Social or some of these other platforms that have attempted to be competitors, because those are viewed more as conservative echo chambers. And so often, if a young person is on Truth Social, they're probably a conservative anyway. And so it does make a lot of sense for at least campaigns and candidates, like you mentioned, Vivek Ramaswamy, going on to some of these other platforms just for the purpose of getting the conservative message out, where these voters are at. I mean, it would be the same thing, for example, as airing a campaign ad on a network that leans very much leftist. You want to go and get your message so that it's not just an echo chamber for the left. So where's the balance then here? In just the last about minute I have with you, Rob Salvador, where's the balance for not encouraging young people to use some of these media platforms, but at least engaging them if they're already on there?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think you said it, at least engaging, at least get to the start line and participate in some of these platforms where the user is already there. You know, as a Republican candidate, you not getting on one of these platforms isn't going to make some generation of kids be like, oh, I'm not going to go on it either. No, they're already there. So at least put out the content, at least understand, you know, what the messages, what the hashtags are. You know, as a politician, you know, someone running might not understand that hashtags are kind of the language of a generation. So at least get to the starting line. Again, we don't have to encourage it and tell people to get on TikTok. As a matter of fact, I hope the free market does the opposite. DeSantis in Florida.
And that's a great point, Rob Salvador. I mean, to say that, you know, we have to make sure to utilize hashtags. I mean, this is why a lot of the young people are getting involved in campaigns, and there are so many candidates that are hiring young people just to run their social media. So if you're a young person out there, you may want to look at potentially helping some of these candidates get the message to your age group. But we'll be right back with more here on SNC Tonight. So finally tonight, there was an interesting survey that came out in Pew Research, and this was the headline. Among young adults without children, men are more likely than women to say they want to be parents someday. And so this is the graph that we'll put up on the screen. It says young men without children are more likely than young women to say they want to be parents someday. Out of all who don't have children, 51% want to, 30% are not sure. Among men, 57% want to, and women only 45% want to. So joining me now to discuss why maybe in this current climate in our culture, having children is kind of disfavored, which is very sad, is the vice president of the American Family Association, where I host Jenna Ellis in the morning from 8 to 9 Eastern, is Walker Wildman. And Walker, so this just to me speaks of a society that is trending more and more godless and is not really understanding God's design for the family.
Yeah, this study, this research put out by Pew is rather shocking for multiple reasons, and it's even shocking to you and I who do this for a living, as far as keep up with the trends. The first thing that stood out to me was that men in the survey were more likely to want children than women. I mean, that's unbelievable, because typically mothers with the maternity instinct are the ones that want children. And of course, men want children too, right, to carry on the lineage of their family. But to see a substantially percentage more men that want children than women was very, very shocking. But this study wasn't it wasn't novel. It wasn't breaking news. And here's why. The birth rate in America has been on the decline for the past 40 to 50 years, since the 60s. I mean, pretty much, and a lot of people aren't going to believe this, but you can fact check me. Ever since the 60s, early 70s, we haven't been at replacement levels. So we've been below 2% birth rate since the early 70s. So this is a very, very bad trend for our country, not just morally, but from an economic standpoint as well. If we're not growing in population and having more children, then that's going to spell trouble economically and with benefits like Social Security down the road.
Yeah, and you mentioned that this started back in the 60s, and that was exactly when the Supreme Court issued their first, in my view, very unconstitutional opinion, Griswold versus Connecticut, which was the first case on contraceptives. And we saw with the rise of the sexual revolution that more and more families were not really being families, and more people viewed sex as pleasure rather than part of a family unit and within the context of marriage. And so there was another graph that was interesting in this article. Let's put this up on the screen. It said most young adults don't feel pressure from their parents to get married or have children. And so 73% said not much or none at all. And among young adults who do not have children, the percentage saying they feel pressure from their parents to have children someday was 67%. So what does this tell you, Walker, then about how family units are being run and children who should be raising up or parents rather, who should be raising up their children in the fear and admonition of the Lord are really buying into the lie of the sexual revolution?
Yeah, for the past, ever since the birth rate dropped below 2%, which I talked about was in the early 70s, we've also seen this pretty drastic drop in people being religious. And we saw the number of people that identify or say that they are Christian, right? Or they share a Christian worldview. That's been drastically dropping to below 60% now, heading towards 50% and could be below the 50% threshold in the next decade or two. But this all coincides together. It's all interconnected. And when people are less religious, less committed to their faith, less committed to their family and passing on their values to future generations, that's where you get this disconnect here, where having children is really this kind of luxury. And if you want them, great. If you don't want to have kids, that's fine, no problem. It's a very troublesome trend that we're seeing here. So we really, as a society and as a nation, need to get back to where we are incentivizing and encouraging and promoting strong families and large families, because that's the only way that America is going to be strong in the future, not just morally, not just, from a cultural standpoint, but this affects every facet of American life, even national security. I mean, some of the stuff people don't connect the dots, but when we are having less native-born Americans here and we're importing foreign ideologies because we don't have a strong enough population, this is problematic on multiple fronts.
Yeah, what a great point. I mean, we are not assimilating people into the American Judeo-Christian heritage, but rather importing secular or atheistic or, any other type of religion ideology, rather than being focused on what has truly in the past made America great. And Walker, I was reading another headline that suggested that it costs, something like $200,000 to raise a child from birth until the age of 18. And the view of this article was, of course, very negative, suggesting that that was a high expense. And I'm thinking people spend a ton of money on their pets. They spend a ton of money on other things. I mean, the Trump sneakers that we talked about in the earlier segment, people are buying those on eBay for like $5,000, and they're concerned about spending money on their kids. I mean, historically, as you mentioned, the state did incentivize marriage with things like right of survivorship, tax breaks, things like that. But now it's like we've weaponized the state to then be able to redefine what marriage and the family is. So how do we get back to our Judeo-Christian heritage?
Yeah, well, to your point, and I'm no fan of big government here, but the reality is the government should be a force for good. That's what the Bible says. Government should be a force for good and should punish evil. So if government is to be a force for good, they should be incentivizing through all means possible, legal and constitutional, the bearing of children, the raising up of children in the fear and admonition of the Lord, also to be patriots, right, to love one's country and to love one's neighbors. So government ought to be in the business of incentivizing family, and better yet, large families, because it's in the best interest and welfare of the state, of the nation, and of our country. But also, I want to just send a message to people out there listening and watching this, that it's also in the best interest of you. I mean, I'm a dad of 4, and Lord willing, I'll have more children as well with my wife, Lexi. But what I see, that one of the saddest things I see as I travel the country and interact with people, both family, friends, loved ones, is when people grow up alone. They grow up with maybe one kid, but that kid moved off, or they grow up and they just didn't have any kids. And let me also note, some people can't have kids, biological children, for various medical reasons, but there's always adoption. There's always foster care. There's options out there to have children.
Yeah. And
But
loneliness is one of the biggest issues in America right now. And Walker Wildman, Vice President of AFA, really appreciate your perspectives. The church needs to be engaged and involved. And that is all the time we have for SNC tonight. You can always follow me on all social media platforms at Jenna Ellis ESQ, and make it a great night.